For the people living out here, a single rainstorm can leave you trapped for weeks, cut off from the rest of the country. And the land itself fights back. With heat so fierce, it can melt the very materials used to build a road. Now Australia is spending $1.2 billion to conquer it, paving 2,720 kilometres of raw desert. This is the Outback Way. Can modern machines finally tame the burning heart of an entire continent? You are probably wondering how an idea this enormous even got started in the first place. The story begins back in 1997 with a man named Patrick Hill and a vision that sounded almost impossible. He dreamed of connecting the middle of Australia from one coast to the other with a single, fully sealed road. So he travelled from town to town, visiting every local council along the route to share his plan and win them over. By 1998, his efforts had taken shape, and the Outback Highway Development Council was officially formed. For years and years, people did not even think of this route as a real road. They simply nicknamed it Australia's longest shortcut. And in truth, that is exactly what it was. Nothing more than a chain of old dirt tracks, rough and dangerous, where drivers risked getting lost or stuck with every journey. For more than 25 years, these local leaders pushed and lobbied, trying to get the government to take their dream seriously. They were so determined that they even wrote a book about their long struggle, fittingly titled Bulldust to Bitumen. Their message was simple. A proper paved road would change life for everyone out here, from the tourists passing through to the farmers who depended on these lands. Then, by 2022, everything finally clicked into place. The funding reached the level it needed, and the dream began turning into reality. Today, the Australian federal government and the state governments together have committed more than $1.2 billion to get the job done. And now, as we move through 2026, the construction teams are racing faster than ever to transform that endless red dust into a solid black ribbon of road. But before we get into how they are actually pulling this off, and trust me, the engineering here is wild, take a quick second to subscribe to the Mega Projects channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a build like this one. So how do you build a highway in a place where the nearest town can be hundreds of kilometers away? Constructing a road in the desert is nothing like building one in a busy city. The heat in the outback is so brutal that it can literally melt ordinary building materials right where they sit. Because of this, the engineers have to follow a very precise set of technical rules to make sure the road holds together under such extreme conditions. The first and most important rule is the width. Every single stretch of this new highway measures 10 meters across, and that 10-meter road sits on top of a 10-meter wide formation, which means the flattened, cleared ground underneath is exactly as wide as the finished surface. This matters enormously for safety, and the reason comes down to the kind of traffic that uses these routes. Have you ever laid eyes on a road train? These are colossal trucks that can stretch beyond 50 meters in length. They haul cattle, fuel, and heavy equipment across the vast emptiness of the desert. Vehicles this big need plenty of room to pass each other safely at speed. If the road were any narrower, those massive tires would grind down and crush the fragile edges of the pavement. And once the edges go, the entire road begins to fall apart. To prevent that, the engineers focus on what lies beneath the black surface you actually drive on. They rely on something called flexible pavement. In a city, you will often find roads made from rigid, stiff concrete. But out in the outback, the ground itself shifts and moves as temperatures swing from scorching daytime heat to freezing desert nights. A flexible road can bend and flex ever so slightly with that movement, instead of cracking apart. The foundation is built from unbound granular materials, a carefully chosen blend of crushed rock and gravel, compacted down until it becomes incredibly hard. But what happens when the very ground beneath the road is too soft to hold a fully loaded truck? This is a serious problem, because so much of the desert is loose sand and fine, powdery clay. To solve it, engineers turn to a technique called soil stabilisation. They take binding agents like cement or lime and mix them straight into the existing dirt. That triggers a chemical reaction, turning weak, crumbly soil into a firm, reliable foundation. In certain spots, they go even further, bringing in special plastic materials called geogrids. These look almost like a giant net, rolled out flat across the ground before any rock is layered on top. The geogrid spreads the heavy weight of the trucks across a much wider area, so the road never sinks down into the sand. But do you know what the single greatest enemy of any road actually is? It's water. When water seeps in underneath a road, it softens the ground below and the whole structure starts to collapse. To fight this, engineers use specialized liquids known as copolymer binders. They work almost like a superglue for the individual particles of soil, seeping into the tiny gaps between the grains and sealing them shut, so water simply cannot get inside. The result is a waterproof barrier that helps the road stay strong for decades. Once that base is hard, dry, and ready, the crew lays the final layer. This is the bitumen, the smooth, dark surface we recognize as a finished road. Out here, they use a special grade that can withstand temperatures soaring above 50 degrees Celsius. They spray it down, then scatter small stones over the top to create a rough, durable surface that grips the tires. But what about the days when all the rain comes crashing down at once? The desert is bone dry for most of the year, yet when the rain finally arrives, it can unleash towering walls of water called flash floods. The Outback Way has to cross dozens of rivers and creeks that sit dry the vast majority of the time. Building an expensive bridge over every single one would be impossible. So instead, the engineers do something clever. They build concrete causeways. A causeway is a thick slab of reinforced concrete laid directly into the bed of the river. When a flood comes, the water simply rushes straight over the top of the road. And once it drains away, the causeway is still sitting there, undamaged. For the smaller flows, they bury culverts, large concrete pipes that let water pass from one side to the other. What makes this project so remarkable is that the work is happening across 3 different states, all at the same time. Over in Western Australia, the route is called the Great Central Road, stretching 872 kilometres, and for a very long time, 736 of those kilometres were nothing but dirt. Now the team there is finalising the design for the last 100 kilometres near the border. In the Northern Territory, the focus is the Plenty Highway and Chikaru Road, with an ambitious goal to finish 155 kilometres of brand new dual-lane seal. And in Queensland, the smallest stretch remains, just 51 kilometres of dirt left on the Kennedy Development Road, a route that links 2 of the largest mining areas on the planet. But how on earth do you find enough water to build a road in the middle of a desert? Often, the crews have to drill deep boreholes into the ground just to reach it. Every single kilometre demands thousands of litres, much of it used simply to keep the choking dust under control while they work. And it is not only the engineering they have to think about. Because the road carves through such remote country, the teams carry out detailed surveys of the local plants and animals and work closely with local communities to make absolutely sure they never disturb places that are sacred. Before digging begins, they search the ground for ancient stone tools and the remains of old campsites. If they uncover something significant, they will reroute the road or find a careful way to protect the site. And for the people living in remote communities like Warburton and Warrakurna, this road means something deeply personal. For the first time, they will be able to reliably receive fresh food and medicine all year round. In the past, whenever the dirt tracks were washed out by rain, families had no choice but to survive on processed or frozen supplies. In a very real sense, this project is improving the health of thousands of people. The total cost is shared between several groups. The federal government is covering $1 billion. Western Australia is adding $139 million, the Northern Territory $50 million, and Queensland $17 million. with the bulk being spent right now across the 2026 and 2027 budget years. The goal is to have the entire road completed and fully sealed by the year 2030. And yet, even with all this support, the project is not without its critics. Some worry the new road will pour too many tourists into fragile areas that simply are not ready for them. There have been delays caused by the long process of consulting landowners and local groups, and some activists have even tried to use heritage protection laws to slow the work down. But despite every hurdle, the long-term benefits are impossible to ignore. When that final kilometre is sealed in 2030, Australia will have gained a brand new lifeline, one that ties the east and the west of the nation together like never before. If you want to see more incredible engineering projects just like this one, make sure to subscribe to the Mega Projects channel. We would absolutely love to hear what you think down in the comments. And remember to turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like.